Okay guys, today we're going to talk about horizontal, vertical, and oblique lines. So number one, it says find the slope between 3, 6 and negative 2, 6. So we're going to put it into the slope formula just like normal. So I'm going to have an x sub 1 here, and a y sub 1, an x sub 2, and a y sub 2. And just a reminder, my formula is m equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Now we can substitute that in to find my slope. So m is going to equal y sub 2, which is 6, minus y sub 1, which is 6, over x sub 2, which is negative 2, minus x sub 1, which is 3. So 6 minus 6 is 0, over negative 2 minus 3, which is negative 5. And then 0 divided by anything is just going to give me a result of 0. So my slope here is 0. Now part B says plot both points and connect them. So if I want to plot these points, I'm going to start at 3, 6. So I'm going to go right 3 and up 6, put a point there. And then I have the point negative 2, 6. So I'm going to go left 2 and up 6. Then I can take my straight edge and connect them all the way through and end them with arrows. So if I look at that line that I have graphed there, that is a horizontal line. Now, horizontal lines have a slope of 0, and as you can see, it's laying flat. Now, part C says write the equation of that line. So if you'll remember from last class, the equation of a line is y equals mx plus b, okay, where m represents my slope and b represents my y-intercept. So if I were to substitute in, I said that my slope was 0, so I can put that in for m. And then my y-intercept, you can see here that it crosses my y-axis at 6. So if I clean this up a little bit, 0 times x is just 0. And then I can add those two together, and y equals 6. So my equation of a horizontal line is y equals 6. Now, this is actually something that's going to happen with every horizontal line. When you have an equation of a horizontal line, you will only have one variable, and that variable is going to be y. Now, your slope will always be 0, and the variable will just be y equals whatever your y-intercept is. So on 2 through 5, again, they want us to write the equation of the line contained by the following points. Now notice they didn't give us a graph that we can just graph it and find the slope and the y-intercept. They only gave us the ordered pairs. So what we want to do is we want to look at the terms that they gave us. The first thing we need to do is look at our x values and ask ourselves, are the x values the same? Well, the first one is 6 and the second one is 4. They are not the same. Okay, then I want to look at my y values. Are my y values the same? My first one is 1, my second one is 1. They are the same, so I'm going to circle them. Since my y values are the same, the equation will be y equals whatever that number is, 1. Number 3, again I want to check, are my x values the same? No. Are my y values the same? Yes. Circle them. And that means my slope would be 0 if I was going to find it. And then my equation is just y equals that number, negative 3. On number 4, are my x values the same? No. Are my y values the same? Yes. Circle them, and my equation is y equals 1. On number 5, are my x values the same? No. Are my y values the same? Yes. Circle them, and we have y equals 4. So, horizontal lines, you'll sometimes hear me refer to them as horizontal lines because the equation just has one variable, which is a y, and it's set equal to that number, 4. The slope is 0, and when you graph it, it's a flat line. On number 6, this is find the slope between 2, 8 and 2, 3. So again, we want x1, y1, x2, y2. So I can substitute it in. M equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Now 3 minus 8 is negative 5, and 2 minus 2 is 0. So I have negative 5 divided by 0, and remember the first commandment of mathematics is you cannot divide by 0, so my slope here is undefined. Okay, we cannot leave it as this fraction here because that's not simplified. My slope is undefined. Now part B says plot both points and connect them. So I want 2, 8. I'm going to go to the right 2 and up 8. And then I have 2, 3. So I'm going to go to the right 2 and up 3. Then I can get my straight edge and connect it all the way through and end it with arrows. And if you'll notice, this line goes straight up and down. Okay, this is what we call a vertical line. Now they want me to write the equation of that line. Well, if I were to try and use the y equals mx plus b, this isn't going to work because my slope is undefined and I can't put a word in there for a slope. So let's look at the ordered pairs that they gave us. They gave us 2, 8 and 2, 3. Hopefully you'll notice that my x values here are the same. They're both 2. So similar to writing the equation of a y, or of a horizontal line with y, vertical lines are going to be the same except with x. So this one is going to be x equals 2. So horizontal lines only have one variable, and that's a y. Vertical lines only have one variable, and that's an x. So on number 7, it says write the equation of the line contained by the following points. So I want to check, are my x values the same? Yes, they are. I can circle them, and my equation would be x equals 5. On number 8, are my x values the same? Yes, they are. I can circle them, and it's x equals negative 4. On number 9, are my x values the same? I can circle them, x equals 0. And on number 10, my x values are both 6, so I can circle them, and it's x equals 6. Alright, now we want to talk about how to write the equation of an oblique line. And just a reminder, an oblique line is any kind of diagonal line. It's not straight up and down, and it's not laying flat. So, two things are required to write the equation of an oblique line. You need a point on that line and the slope of that line. So last class period we talked about how to graph an equation in slope-intercept form, that y equals mx plus b. Well, that works really well when I have a slope and when I have a y-intercept. But if I don't have a y-intercept, for example on number 11, I just have a regular point, because remember a y-intercept was 0, some number. And since I don't have a 0 there, that's not a y-intercept, that's just a regular old point. So that's when we have to use something called point-slope form, which is right here. Y minus y sub 1 equals my slope times the quantity of x minus x sub 1. So this is very similar to slope-intercept form because it does have the slope still. However, instead of a y-intercept, it's got this x sub 1 and y sub 1, which is just the terms of the ordered pair that they gave us. So the instructions say to use the given information to write an equation in point-slope form. Then convert that equation to slope-intercept form so you can graph the line. So they gave us a slope of m equals 2, and they gave us a they gave us a slope of 2, and they gave us an ordered pair of 1, 5. The first thing we need to do is identify this is my x sub 1, and this is my y sub 1. So now what we need to do is we need to substitute all of this information into this formula. So y minus y sub 1, I'm going to have y minus my y sub 1 is 5, equals my slope, which is 2, times the quantity of x minus x sub 1, which is 1. Now, we can't leave our equation like that because we want it in slope-intercept form so it would be easier to graph in the future. So to get this equation in slope-intercept form, we need to solve it for the variable y. So the first thing I need to do is distribute that 2. My y minus 5 comes down. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Now, to get y by itself, I just need to add 5 to each side. And when I do that, I'm left with y equals 2x plus 3. Now that your y variable is all by itself, you're good to go. Box your answer. Let's try it again on number 12. So again, they gave me a slope, and they gave me a point. So I want to identify this point as x sub 1 and y sub 1. And now I can just substitute this information into my equation. So we're going to have y minus y sub 1. So instead of saying y minus a negative 3, let's say y plus 3 equals my slope times the quantity of x minus x sub 1. Now we need to solve for y. So let's distribute. I'll bring down my y plus 3 equals 1/4 times x is 1/4 x. 1/4 times a negative 8, well, positive times a negative is a negative, and then 1/4 times 8, we'll start with the denominator here, 4 goes into 8 2 times, and 2 times my numerator of 1 is just a 2. So 1/4 times 8 is 2. And if you need to do that in your calculator, that's okay. And next, to solve for y, I'm going to subtract 3 from each side. And I'm going to be left with y equals 1/4 x minus 5. So again, on 13, let's identify I have an x sub 1 and I have a y sub 1. So to substitute it in, I can have y minus y sub 1, which is 4, equals my slope of negative 2/3 times the quantity of x minus x sub 1, which is negative 9. So I want to make that a plus 9. Now we solve. So I'm going to bring down my y minus 4 equals negative 2/3 times x is a negative 2/3 x. Then I'm going to take this negative 2/3 times a positive 9. So a negative times a positive is a negative. And then 2/3 times 9. I'm going to start with this denominator here of 3. 3 goes into 9 3 times. And then 3 times 2 is 6. So 2/3 times 9 is 6. Next, to solve, we're going to add 4 to each side. And I'm going to be left with y equals negative 2/3 x minus 2. On number 14, we're going to do it again. So we're going to identify our x sub 1 and our y sub 1. And then we're going to substitute it into my formula. So what I'd like you to do is pause the video and just substitute the information into your formula. Alright, hopefully you got y plus 6 equals 2/5 times the quantity of x minus 5. Now to solve, we'll distribute. So y plus 6 equals 2/5 x, a positive times a negative is a negative, and then 2/5 times 5. So 5 goes into 5 one time, and then 1 times my numerator of 2 is 2. Then we can subtract 6 from each side, and we're left with y equals 2/5 x minus 8. Alright, what I'd like you to do is pause the video and do number 15 completely on your own. Okay, hopefully you got y plus 2 equals 1/2 times the quantity of x plus 8. Then you distributed your 1/2 and you got y plus 2 equals 1/2 x plus 4. Then we subtracted 2 from each side and we're left with y equals 1/2 x plus 2. On number 16, we have a slope of 0 and it goes through the point of negative 3, 5. So I'm going to show you how to do this one two ways. The first way we're going to do it is just like normal. So I'm going to identify my x sub 1 and my y sub 1, and we can substitute it in. So I'm going to have y minus my y sub 1 equals my slope times the quantity of x minus my x sub 1, so plus 3. Now, to simplify, I want you to look at the right side here. You could distribute a 0, but I want you to remember 0 times anything is just 0. So that leaves me with y minus 5 equals 0. Then I can add 5 to each side, and I'm left with y equals 5. Now, if you'll notice, this equation only has one variable in it. That variable is y. And if you'll remember from the first problem that we did, whenever you have a slope of 0, your line is horizontal. And when it is a horizontal line, you can automatically say that it's going to be y equals whatever y value the ordered pair has. So if you catch that, you can come straight down here and say that my answer is y equals 5. But it still works if you go through the process. Okay, next it says 2 points are given. Write the equation of the line that contains those 2 points. Not a big deal. We did this on the front page, so let's check. Are my x values the same? Nope. Are my y values the same? No. Well, that makes it a little bit trickier because we can't just say x equals something or y equals something. Now we have to do a little bit of work. So let's talk about the 3 formulas that we know so far. We know the formula for slope, which is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. We just learned the formula for point slope, so y minus y sub 1 equals my slope times the quantity of x minus x sub 1. And we also know y equals mx plus b. Now this is the form that we want to get it to. This is always what our final answer wants to be in. But sometimes to do that, you have to put it into this form because sometimes they just give us a point. Well, to use this form, we need a point and a slope. Now unfortunately, they did give us a point, but they did not give us a slope. But if you'll remember, they do give us a formula for slope. So on these kind of problems, all we have to do is first find the slope, then put it into point slope form, then solve for slope intercept form. So on number 17, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to identify your x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, and y sub 2. Now we can substitute it into my formula and find the slope. So m equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1, so 8 plus 4, over x sub 2 minus x sub 1, so 5 minus 2. Well, 8 plus 4 is 12, over 5 minus 2 is 3. Now I can simplify that. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So now I found my slope, and I need a point to put it into this form. Well, lucky us, we have 2 points. Now, it does not matter which point you choose. You could choose your first ordered pair, or you could choose your second ordered pair. Either way will get you the correct answer. Several of us might be tempted to use the first ordered pair because it has an x sub 1 and a y sub 1, but just remember, these just represent whatever x and y values that you choose from your point. Now, whichever point you do choose, I need you to circle it. I say for 17, we use this ordered pair right here, this 5, 8, because both of them are positive, so it's a little easier to work with. Now, I'm going to use this point and this slope and substitute it in. So y minus y sub 1, which is 8, equals my slope of 4 times the quantity of x minus x sub 1, which is 5. Now to solve, I distribute, so y minus 8 equals 4x minus 20, and then I can add 8 to each side. When I do that, the 8's will cancel out, leave me with y equals 4x minus 12. Okay, no big deal. We're going to skip 18, let's go over to 19. So on 19, the first thing you need to do is you need to look, are my x values the same? No, they're not. Are my y values the same? No, they're not. That's when we need to go through our process. So we're going to identify x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. So we start by substituting that into my slope formula. M equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So 17 minus 11 is 6, 4 minus 1 is 3, and 6 divided by 3 gives me a slope of 2. Now, we need to choose an ordered pair to go with my slope and put it into point slope form. I'm going to choose the first one this time because they're smaller numbers and they're easier to work with. So let's take this information and substitute it into my formula. So y minus y sub 1, which is 11, equals my slope of 2 times the quantity of x minus x sub 1, which is 1. Now I can distribute, so y minus 11 equals 2 times x minus 2. Then we can add 11 to each side, and we'll be left with y equals 2x plus 9. Alright, let's go down to number 20. First thing you need to do on number 20 is you need to check, are my x values the same? No. Are my y values the same? No. That means we need to go through a process of x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. And now we can put it into our formula. M equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1, so negative 3 plus 7, over x sub 2 minus x sub 1, so negative 6 minus 6. Negative 3 plus 7 is 4, and negative 6 minus 6 is negative 12. 4 divided by negative 12 is negative 1 over 3. Now we just need to choose an ordered pair. For me, I'm going to choose the second one this time. If you choose the first one, again, if you do the math right, you will end up with the same answer. So let's substitute it in. Y minus y sub 1 equals my slope times the quantity of x minus x sub 1. So I got y plus 3 equals negative 1/3 times the quantity of x plus 6. Now we distribute, and we get y plus 3 equals negative 1/3 x. Now I have a negative times a positive, which is a negative, and 1/3 times 6. 3 goes into 6 2 times, and 2 times 1 is 2. Now we can subtract 3 from each side. Whoa! We can subtract 3 from each side, and we'll be left with y equals negative 1/3 x minus 5. Alright, let's skip number 21, and let's go over here to 22. So again, first thing we check, are my x values the same? No. Are my y values the same? Yes. When your y values are the same, guys, it's going to save you so much work. All you have to do is circle them, and then since it's the y values, it's y equals, and then that number, negative 3. Now, if you wanted to, you could go through this whole process of m equals, find the slope, substitute it in, and you'll still get the same answer. It's just a little bit more work. So look, always check your ordered pairs first. That can save you time in the future. Let's go to number 23. Pricey Peterson Cable TV and Satellites offers premium cable for $39.95 per month plus a one-time startup fee. The total cost for setup and 6 months of service is $264.70. Use the information above to identify a point and a slope for this situation. So remember, the slope is always matched with something per something else. So this dude right here is our slope, 39.95. Now my point is going to have two things grouped together. So for example, we have 6 months and $264.70. That's going to be my ordered pair. Now I just have to figure out which one's my x value and which one's my y value. Now, in an ordered pair, the x value goes first, and x is always time. So here I have 6 months. If you had months, weeks, days, years, decades, seconds, all of that, anything that represents time will go first. So we'll have the ordered pair of 6, comma, 264.70. Now, part B says, use point-slope form to write an equation for the scenario. Convert that equation to slope-intercept form. So we'll have our ordered pair here, y minus y sub 1 equals my slope times the quantity of x minus x sub 1. Now we need to convert it to slope-intercept form. So I need to distribute. So I'll still have y minus 264.70 equals 39.95x. And then I want to take 39.95 times 6, and we'll get minus 239.70. And then all we need to do is add 264.70 to each side. And we will get y equals 39.95x plus 25. Now let's talk about what this equation means. 39.95 was our slope. That means that's how much it costs per month. But this plus 25 out here represents that one-time startup fee when you register for your cable TV and satellite. Alright, that wraps up this lesson. If you have any questions, make sure you come and ask.